Welcome to the MIDCONVO podcast. It's Paul and Ed, and we're here with a special guest. Ed?
Today we have with us Daniel Schiffer. He's a content creator, also a YouTuber based out of Toronto, Canada. Super fired up for this one.
What did we talk about?
We talked about so many things in this episode, but we went over a lot of his journey from becoming a freelance videographer, content creator, transitioning into YouTube, and the whole mental journey and everything that went through that process.
That's good. We also talked about kind of what he's been up to since, let's be honest, the pandemic, when he kind of popped off on YouTube, and ever since just being consistent with uploads and what's on his plate right now.
And also what to invest into and how you should view your relationship with money and how you should invest your time and also your money financially and what you should do when you're going through a season of burnout or in a rut.
But I'll let you guys listen to the rest. Let's roll that intro music.
What's up, Daniel? Thanks for coming on to the podcast. We're super excited for this conversation.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Dude, I think what's so cool is that we're in your city.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
What do you think so far?
Honestly, Toronto is a vibe. I love it. It's really cool walking. One morning we went to the gym and walking on the sidewalk in the city and then seeing the CN Tower. It's kind of sick. I'm sure it's like super touristy, but I think it's sick.
Bro, within like 3 blocks, we stopped 10 times to shoot video footage on your what?
On my iPhone and the Osmo Pocket.
Of the CN Tower?
Of the CN Tower.
Yeah.
And us just like walking towards the CN Tower. Classic B-roll.
No, that's classic. That's good.
Yeah, but so far the trip has been good. But again, we're so excited to dive into this conversation with you because I feel like for Toronto, when I think of Toronto creatives, you're definitely one of the top people that I think of. Maybe because I've been watching your videos for so long. And also we like randomly connected many years ago when I used to work at Rhino. Everyone who listens to the podcast know I used to work at a startup. And so we're excited to dive into it. What topic should we cover first, Paul?
Man, I think it would be cool to kind of hear an update on what's going on right now in your life.
Sure.
A lot of us that follow you on YouTube or social, personally, I kind of got introduced to your work during the pandemic. As someone that shoots a lot of beverage lifestyle stuff, I'm like, yo, hold up. This guy's going off. And you were getting creative with what you had. And I just want to hear like, what's an update? What's going on right now? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I guess like you said, during the pandemic, stuck at home and took to product commercials as kind of the main thing, not much else to do. And then I think I was a little bit too stuck at home. So I think this summer I spent a good amount of time getting out and golfing.
Oh,
that's kind of my new thing.
Fun.
But work-wise, creatively, I feel like I'm kind of in a transitional stage. I think, finally pivoting away from long-form content. And I want to do more short-form on, Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. Facebook's in the mix. Do you guys use Facebook at all?
Do you use like when you post a Reel, do you have the setting turned on where it also posts to Facebook?
Yeah.
Bro,
yeah.
Have you seen like that to help or not help?
I think it helps because I don't even want to try using the Facebook Studio Manager.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It always gives me the option, and then I'm like, oh, do we go to Facebook? Are we still going there? But
Yeah, why
I usually
not?
don't, but maybe I should now.
Yeah, it just does it automatically. I don't really even check it, to be honest. But I just let it go. Yeah. But yeah, just I've been doing some client work. Got to be in my first TV commercial a few weeks ago.
That's awesome.
For Hyundai Canada. Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Wow.
As you know, I'm normally behind the camera, so being in front of the camera for a TV ad was definitely different, out of the comfort zone, but really cool, honestly. It's a totally different world, much bigger style production than what I'm used to, so that was cool. But yeah, that's about it. I guess I've not been doing as much on YouTube as I used to, but I don't know, I feel like it's been a good run. I'm not saying goodbye to YouTube long form just yet completely, you never know, but I do want to start focusing more time on the short form.
That's cool.
Yeah. I think a lot of listeners here, they're creative freelancers. Maybe they're in the photo, video, or maybe they're in the content creator niche and they're trying to grow on YouTube. But I think it's fascinating hearing you talk about doing a commercial for Hyundai, because you might be listening, and for those who may not know you, they might be like, okay, well, this dude's working with Hyundai. He's a content creator. He's probably crushing it. But I've been following you from like the early days, even when you just make videos like when you're just at your desk at your last place and just making tips.
My parents' house, yeah.
Yeah, just making like topical videos and tips and tricks. And that was really like a good time. And it was crazy to see the explosive growth that you had. So maybe take us back a little bit, like a little time machine. We don't have to give like necessarily a history of how you got here, but were you in freelance videography and then you became a content creator, or like when was that time you picked up a camera and then actually turned it into a profit?
That's good.
Yeah, I started with cameras when I was really young. So it really started, my mom had a digital Sony CyberShot camera.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and I just would set that up in the driveway. I'd film myself just like skateboarding in the driveway or even shooting hockey pucks was like a thing I would do. And I'd make little edits and put them on YouTube. Then as I got older, that never really went away. But in high school, I got really into skateboarding with my friends. And we did more and more skate videos online. And that's when I started thinking like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this. And maybe there is like a path to make some money here. So I started freelancing a little bit in high school, went to university, did marketing for 5 years. And during that time, I didn't really touch a camera, at least not for work. But I was still messing around in Photoshop and doing stuff like when we had group projects, I was always the video guy and would randomly just make little videos for our projects, even though they didn't ask. But when I graduated in 2017, I was like, all right, before I start handing out resumes and really trying to find a job, let's see if I can make this video thing work. So I was freelancing, doing a lot of real estate videos. That was kind of the first thing I sort of took to at the time. And then at the same time, I got really inspired by different content creators I saw online. And I was like, maybe I could do something there as well. You know, if I get a free gimbal out of it, you know, that'd be cool. But I wasn't really thinking at the time that like social media could be a viable career for myself. But honestly, pretty quickly, like much quicker than I expected, it started to gain some traction. I was getting a lot of positive comments, and I felt like that was a good indicator that, you know, maybe there was something there. So I just kept going with it. That started in 2017, and then fast forward just through the evolution of it all, it grew into what it is now.
Before you had that explosive state, like I know that I specifically remember there was like a period for your YouTube channel where it was like literally could not miss, like just literally cooking so hard, and you still are. But it was like you saw one of Daniel's videos, and then eventually it was like everywhere. Everyone was collaborating with Daniel. Everyone was watching Daniel's videos. But I know that how many years did it take up until you experienced like that phase? Because obviously, everyone always says it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, I think different people will have a different version of that. Like depending on who you ask, they're going to remember some pivotal moment or some time period that was like, that's when it blew up. But I think there was actually multiple different times. Like there was the time where my channel very quickly went from like 20,000 subscribers to 80,000. And I look at that, like that was the biggest growth. Like that's a huge leap in viewership. And then things kind of cooled off for a little. And then the next big leap was going from like 100,000 to 300,000. That was also a big jump. Then after that, it like, I think what you're talking about is the like just skyrocketing after that, which was probably in 2019, right around the pizza video, the pizza B-roll. That was probably, there was a couple of videos before that got a lot of views, but that was the one that like really took off in my viewership. Yeah, it just exploded. Like,
for listeners, how much does what's the view count on that video right now?
I don't have a clue.
Estimate it.
Maybe 7 million.
Wow.
7 million.
Crazy.
What if I'm like way wrong? It's
no,
like 2 million.
I'm
don't
so curious. Was there a moment that you were surprised at what was happening? Like when you hit 100,000, that was probably like, oh, that's a cool moment. But what happened when you hit like your 1 million subs? Was there like something that happened where you're like, hold up, this is a different ball game?
I don't know if there was like a specific thing that happened, but like as it's growing, you're always kind of reflecting on, you know, how did it get to this point? Like, because it happened so fast. I went from being a student and not knowing what I was going to do with my life, like not a clue. I was like, I got to find a way to make money and do something with myself. All of a sudden to brands reaching out, wanting to do sponsorships, wanting to do client work. And I think the point where I realized like, okay, this is actually something is when I was no longer seeking out work. Like people were just coming to me, and that's still like to this day, I'm totally humbled and like just, it's crazy to even think that it's gotten to that point. But yeah, it's like when around that time, I felt like I was no longer reaching out, pitching projects, just the brands and the sponsors were emailing me.
I think that's a cool moment as a creative freelancer where, everyone has their own timeline. Sometimes it takes people more time to get to a point where leads are just coming to them. But to hear your story, I think it's so cool because you probably had years of doing maybe the outreach or simply like going out and trying to book the real estate projects. I'm just picturing you, man, on like a gimbal running through a house in Toronto.
Or like hockey videos. I know you have hockey videos on your channel too, but like even before that on YouTube, I'm sure you were like filming on the ice and just like doing a bunch of stuff.
Oh, dude, on my current account, like my actual channel, there's like 200 privated videos that are just me and my buddies like goofing around on skateboards. Yeah, like all around the city. Just So that's awesome. Totally a thing.
I want to go back to the client work bit because I think that's super fascinating. And I want to unpack a little bit about balancing both, but kind of zooming in on the client work aspect of it. At what point and how did you try to negotiate rates or increase rates for client work? Because I feel like a lot of people listening might be stuck. Like I make money with the camera. I'm able to make a couple $100s. Well, let's say they don't have the following. How, like, what are some tips that you can give for someone trying to really grow their business and really try to make it with holding a camera or even an iPhone, for example?
Yeah. So obviously it's going to depend on the person. Like there's so many factors where you live and, you know, what stage in your creative career you're at. Like if you're a beginner, I would say what I was doing at the time was I found other creatives to work with. So I had a friend who was primarily a photographer and he was 4 years older than I am. So he had more experience working with clients and stuff. I had never worked with a client, but some of his clients that he did photos for started gaining an interest in video. And we knew each other through skateboarding. And he was like, all right, you're the video guy. You want to do this project? And I was like, sure. And he's like, I got $100 for you. And I was like, $100? Like, sounds good. Like, I didn't know what he was charging. I had no idea, but I was probably in like grade 10 at the time. So I was still young. $100 like for a few hours of work with my camera was actually pretty sweet. Once I got to a point where I wanted to start finding my own clients and doing work for myself, I went back to that same friend and just had some questions. I was like, what do you think my work is actually worth? And I started off charging around $400 for, you know, some people will say like a half day or a full day rate. I didn't really have that. I just was like, yeah, if I can get $400 out of a video, I'm happy. I'd say like the number one advice I would have for pricing is to talk to other creatives you know. And if you don't know any, like,
you better find some.
But we live in a better time than ever to find those creatives. Like we have so much social media. There's TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, for me to sit here and be like, this is how much you should be charging, it's impossible to really know. But I'd say find some like-minded creatives to collaborate with.
I like that because I think we got to be careful as an industry because sometimes it's easy to see an Instagram reel that pops off where someone's doing a budget breakdown and you're maybe in a different country or in a different state and you're like, oh, I want that. And you try applying it to your business, but your clientele's different. Or maybe you're on year 2 and the person that put out that reel is on like year 10 and they're booked and busy. So they have leverage. But I think you brought up a good point where it's like, right now we live in a time where it's easy to find and become more educated on pricing and also even see like budget breakdowns.
Yeah.
For the YouTube journey, and now that let's say at that point you started to make money with client work, at this point you're not shooting like commercials yet and you haven't really tapped into that. How were you able to balance doing client work, but then also trying to build like some sort of brand or like persona online? How did you do both? Because there's definitely a season of doing both.
And I think I want to add to this, like you went from content creator Daniel to content creator Daniel and kind of influencer Daniel. Because brands now are like, oh, there's an integration layer. I'm so curious.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more of a unique thing when you have that side of it where you now have income coming in from sponsorships and things where you're kind of like, oh, I don't have to do as many client projects. So what I started doing was, instead of going full throttle with the client stuff, I was like, because I'm getting paid for these YouTube videos, I want to prioritize that content and come up with the best videos that would help others trying to learn the same stuff. So instead of actively seeking out clients, I started doing a lot more spec work. So I started finding projects and coming up with ideas that I thought would be good for the channel. So, the pizza video that we were just talking about is a good example of that. That was a free video. I just had an idea for a pizza commercial.
That's so cool.
And yeah, I happened to have a friend who had a pizza shop, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. I don't want any money. I just want your time and for you to make a few pizzas. And he was like, dude, let's do it. So that's what I did. That, like, you ask about the transition or the balancing of freelancing and, the YouTube and the sponsorships and things like that. It was really, they were kind of one and the same.
They blended together.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If there was a client at the time that was like, oh, no, we don't want you to post about this, then I was like, then I don't really want to do it, because I want to keep feeding this thing that's growing and helping people. And I think at the time I kind of saw that there was potential there. So it just felt like the smart thing to do was to prioritize projects that, in a sense, were double dipping. Like, you're making connections with clients, but you're also creating content for social media.
That's crazy. I was just going to ask, like, there's a lot of different forms of content out there on YouTube. Your videos that we're talking about really are to show what's possible with the camera. And in a way, it's like uplifting other freelancers and creatives that are trying to work with brands. What made you be like, yo, I want to help other people in the industry by putting out these videos? Because I don't know, I just feel like it's not for everybody. And you put out these videos, whether it's like drink videos or like the pizza one, to show your process and to show like, hey, look what I got. This is a spec shoot. And I think it really, not only did it help your brand grow, but it's helped so many freelancers all around the world take their camera and go out and make money with it. Like, bro, I was going to ask, and we'll get there, what's the ROI on that video for you? But the ROI on that video for others watching it has been, now they've been able to go out and land paid work.
Yeah, I guess it would be easy to sit here and say that I'm just such a good person and just want to help people.
Oh, man.
But
what a good guy.
Yeah, just out of the goodness of my heart. But no, look, I was really inspired by people who were doing it before me. Peter McKinnon, Matty Boya, Chris Howe, Sam Colder, Parker Walbeck, just to name a few. I'm sure there's more, but I loved what they were doing, and I felt that value. I was learning from them. I never went to film school. I was self-taught, YouTube taught, and I thought, you know what? Like, I'm not a terrible presenter. Like, doing presentations in school, I was always kind of okay at it. Not great, like it needed work. But I thought, if I can do this, if I can make videos and turn it into, like I said, never had the expectation of it being a career, but at the very least a way of networking and connecting with others, but also help people along the way, it was kind of a win-win. Like, there was no reason not to try it. So helping people, I guess, just learn from videos and teach people how to do things was a means of kind of doing the thing that I always was inspired by, but
doing it in a way where it speaks to your workflow and how you work, right?
Exactly. It kind of gave me a reason to keep getting better myself. Because if I was the one who was teaching people how to do effects in Final Cut or how to do a certain camera trick, and they were all learning from that, it gave me a reason
to get better.
Yeah, I need to get better. I need to keep learning.
Wow,
I need to keep
cool.
staying like ahead of the curve so I can keep teaching people. It's an interesting question because it's not something I've like really thought about a lot. But I
Which
think
is cool because it's something that wasn't premeditated, but it was just a part of your, you let people in on the process of what you're doing. And I think that's what's so cool about YouTube is it's the behind the scenes, it's breaking it down. It's just sharing what to you seems like, oh, this is just what I do. But when you break it down for people in a step-by-step process, it's cool how people can gain knowledge from it.
And I should say, like, it's very rewarding. Like when you see the comments of people being like, you helped me so much, like you helped me get my first gig, I now have clients because of the videos, and I've learned all this stuff from you. It's extremely fulfilling. Like no brand deal or sponsorship is ever going to feel as impactful as someone saying that you've been an instrumental part in their career and their livelihood and how they support their family. Like it's crazy. It's crazy to think that that's even an effect that you can have on people. So rewarding is like probably the word I would use there.
Wow. That's awesome.
I want to shift gears a little bit into kind of like the mental and mindset side of what we're talking about right now. Because as you said, like it's not premeditated. Like a lot of times when people grow online or even maybe like their business offline explodes, sometimes it is planned, but most of the time something happens, like an event happens or a series of months happen, and then like their whole life looks different. For yourself, when you were going through those explosive states on YouTube, did you have any systems in place to like manage that? And when you did get to that destination, did you now feel pressure that wasn't there before? Like, I feel like this is not talked about a lot online because it is like, even at a micro level, it's very hard to manage your like emotions when it comes to anything online. So I can't even imagine what it would be like at a higher level.
Some people even call it like a viral hangover, straight up. They're like, yo, my stuff popped off. I am exhausted and I don't know how to deal with what's going on.
I relate to that. Like, I don't even go that viral, like, honestly, but even for some posts, like, it's so weird because you put this pressure on yourself that didn't exist before and no one's even really putting it on you, but for some reason it just like creeps up on you like crazy. I don't know why.
I think there's that, and people talk about the imposter syndrome is like a thing. I don't know if I've felt like too much of that per se, because I've never actually viewed myself as being this sort of like imposter. You know what I mean? It all, like everything I did felt very organic. I never felt like I was forcing anything that like wasn't me. I think a lot of that comes from just the fact that everything I share and have shared, it's never really been super personal. It's a lot of just stuff about things I love to do, like cameras and editing and whatnot. And I wasn't sharing, here's my personal life just out on the table for everyone to look at and judge. I was really just talking about stuff that me and the audience would just nerd out over, and we all loved it. So as things kind of like grew quickly, and you know, you have the occasional viral video that gets a lot of views, there's definitely a pressure because you're like, okay, this is the new bar. Like I want to keep crushing content that gets this amount of views. But in the back of your mind, you kind of know it's not sustainable to, like, you know, not every video is going to hit. But you were kind of alluding to it earlier. There was a run where, like, you said it felt like I couldn't miss. I don't know if I would say it felt like that. I definitely felt like I had misses, but I did feel like there was sort of this flow of just riding trends that people were like eating it up. Like if I made a video in that way where it's like showing off these handheld techniques and these different transitions and things, people were going to like it. And fortunately at the time, I happened to be really creatively inspired. So I had a lot of ideas and I had a lot of things I wanted to try. So it wasn't like it was difficult to come up with those, but there was definitely a lot of banging my head against a wall being like, I need ideas. I need to keep going. Because eventually you do become a one-trick pony. You start doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you want to like, you want to branch out and try different things.
You're human.
Yeah. But I think as a defense mechanism, I always made sure I didn't get too ahead of myself when a video would do well. I remember going on the Justin O'D show podcast years ago. First podcast I ever did. Me and him are still good friends.
I listened to that podcast
Is that right?
6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good episode because it was at a perfect time in your life too to like be on a pod and talking about it.
I was like still just like sort of entering everything. But I remember him saying like, oh dude, you're going to hit 100K soon on YouTube. And I was like, no, like, I don't think so. Because I always kind of had that in my mind. And I wasn't just being like humble about it. I was genuinely like always trying to downplay where things were going and how things were performing because I didn't want to get too far ahead. I didn't want to, like, I guess the expression would be don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Facts.
One thing I would do is if a brand deal came in, I wouldn't even tell my parents about it until the video was like done and uploaded because I didn't want to be like, oh, I got this contract. And then you never know, something could come up and they could pull out. You don't want to get too excited until it's actually done and you see the money and like the videos out there. So yeah, like I said, it's almost like a defense mechanism I had it inherently to just not get ahead of myself. And same thing when a video would flop on the other side of things, if a video didn't do well, it doesn't feel good. Like you obviously don't want that to happen, but you have to remember it's a marathon, not a sprint. Not every video can be a banger. There's going to be ups and downs.
That's good. I like the organic momentum aspect that you touched on. Because I think a lot of people on YouTube, I'm just saying, like they're trying to dissect like what's the trend or how do we like go viral based on like what was said or the hook.
What's the best
for
title,
you just to put out content that you're passionate about and you're like, yo, I'm creative, I'm feeling this idea, I took action on it, got a lot of views, that's dope. I kind of want to shift real quick and hear from you. Like right now, I feel like being a creative entrepreneur, freelancer, it's the best time. Cool. But like, it can be extremely exhausting and there's seasons where, I mean, there's huge ups and downs. I call it the freelance roller coaster, where there's maybe a month or months where you're just like, bro, I'm like blessed, I'm thankful, but I'm stressed, I'm exhausted, I need a break, whether it's mental health related or hitting a wall or burnout. Like, is there something that you can speak to that's top of mind that you've experienced maybe within the last few years where you're like, dude, I needed like a reset? Because I feel like a lot of freelancers that follow you on YouTube or are just following their favorite creatives on social media, we're always seeing the best part. We're always seeing like, oh, that video went off. And like, dude, you just said it. You don't really let people in on your personal life. Are you down to touch on that?
Yeah, totally. I don't know if I could like answer this from the perspective of an expert, like in a way that it makes it advice, because I struggle with that too. You know what I mean? It's not like I've got it figured out and I know how to handle those things. Like there's seasons where you're super busy and like you said, you're grateful and you're just so glad that it's working out. And then you have times where you haven't had anyone in your email inbox for a few weeks, sometimes months, and you're like, gosh, am I ever going to get another client again? I think it's easy to sit here and say like, you just got to stay positive. But I think the best thing you can do is to keep yourself busy. And that could just be collaborating with other creators, even if it's not financially like rewarding, you're not making money off of it, you're connecting with people, and connecting with people is always going to lead to stuff. And you get to talk to other people, see what they're up to, and it has a positive impact to just surround yourself with other people who are like-minded and do similar stuff to you. So that's the thing I'd say is, yeah, just be around other people going through it at the same time. The worst thing you can do is be alone and lock yourself in a room and just dwell on things.
Yeah.
So go through these things with other people. I was very lucky to have numerous friends, like shout out Maddie, Dennis, Pat, and so many others who like, we were all kind of learning together at the same time, doing projects together. And that support system, it's almost like a family. Like when you can talk to people who are also dealing with the same stuff, it helps a lot, because then you don't feel like a failure. You don't feel like you've totally messed up and you're going nowhere.
That's interesting, because I've seen a lot of freelancers give up because they don't have that support system.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to find sometimes.
I think, like you said, just like now's a better time than ever to like be a freelancer because of all the social media at our disposal. It's the best and the worst, because you're also going to compare yourself to others, which isn't good. You shouldn't do that, but it's so easy to meet people now and to put yourself out there. So I'd say that's the number one thing.
That's really good.
I have a question about, so when you're a freelancer in the early stages, you typically, I would say, maybe I'm wrong, I would say typically you put your time into where it's financially advantageous, whether that's going down the route of becoming an influencer, whether that's getting client work in a specific niche, with wedding or real estate or whatever. When you're first starting out, you typically go where the money is because you want to make this into a career path. You want to
say yes to everything.
Yeah. In your case, obviously now that you're at a point where you kind of can choose, where you can take on a sponsored video and make money there, or a beverage brand could pay you money and you could just make a commercial and you never have to post about it ever on like social. You can choose. I guess, is there a reason why you haven't gone down the path of just doing client work? Like when YouTube got like stressful, or maybe you had the pressure of like doing a sponsored integration, like brands would pay you big money just to like make commercials for them. Is there, I guess, walk me through why you decide to split the way you do.
I always say this to anybody who kind of asks a similar question. I always recommend that even if you're not wanting to be an influencer, quote unquote, or a YouTuber or an Instagrammer, a TikToker, you should always have an online portfolio where you share your work. And I think a big part of why I prioritize that so much is because once it was growing and once it did become part of my career, a lot of the income became passive through those channels, through affiliate links, ad revenue, and things like that, where it allowed me to be selective when it came to which brands I want to work with, which clients I want to take on, because I had other things in play, like selling LUT packs, for example, where there was always some income coming in, whether it was significant or not. It was something. It could pay for some of the bills and kind of de-stress, how much that financial aspect is weighing on you, where you're like, okay, I got this YouTube thing over here. It's generating some money. If I just keep uploading, it'll keep generating money. It's not groundbreaking. It's not as much as what a client would pay for a commercial, but it's something. And that lets you be more selective. Again, I think the big part is it takes off some of the stress that would come with that. Yeah, that would be the main reason, honestly, and also just like, I loved it. Like, I just like uploading to YouTube, and I like the comments. I like interacting with people online, helping people. Like, that's obviously a part of it too. But purely, like, if we're just looking at like the financial and the business aspect, yeah, like the ability to have passive income it takes so much stress off of all of it.
I think that's super helpful for people that are listening to MIDCONVO right now, because here's the deal, like treating your time for money like 24/7 gets exhausting. So like the goal is to figure out how to diversify what you're doing and figure out, okay, cool, I'm not just putting all my eggs in this one basket, because we learned during the pandemic that maybe people that were shooting for service-based companies, they're like, all of a sudden my work's gone. I'm not making money. Okay, cool. So now coming out of the pandemic, they have other revenue streams. So it's cool to hear that you've been able to have the LUT packs, have the affiliates. Now it's like having big YouTube integrations and also client work. So I think it's a good piece of advice for any freelancer, because for me personally, I don't want to be holding a camera and I don't want to be 45 holding a camera on Miami Beach shooting a fitness commercial. That's weird.
It's fair.
So to be honest, I've kind of diversified, and now I'm producer Paul. But also, like, I've loved business consulting. I've also loved selling digital products. But I think that's just helpful for anyone that's listening, because you need to think in a way about the end in mind, or like, what's the future look like? Because there's going to come a time where you're like, hey, I want to do something that I'm making money, where I'm not showing up and shooting a 30-second commercial spot.
That's really good. When you have an influx, like a good month, as a freelancer, there are months where like, oh my gosh, like I'm making the most money I've ever seen.
Hold up. What's that for you? If you're going to bring it up.
Me?
I'm just playing.
Okay. I was going to like, okay, why put me on the spot like that?
Bro, you were sweating for a minute.
I know.
Chill.
I was like, let me take my hat off, bro. Let me take out my QuickBooks real quick. But when you have those months, like obviously everyone knows what that feels like. You're like, wow, this is the most money I've ever seen. Then you have months where like, wow, like my inbox is dry. I can't even get a client work right now. But when those months are good, as a person who's in their late 20s and just be growing up and dealing with life and all that, how do you reinvest your money? Like, what do you invest your money into?
What do you spend your money on?
Yeah, like
that's really good.
And
also, bro, you told me you don't travel that much.
No.
My guy told me, I'm like, do you like to travel to like Europe? He's like, what? I think I went to like Mexico.
Yeah, when I was like 14.
And you tell them your response. It was really good.
Yeah, I don't really travel much, like maybe once or twice a year, usually just for leisure or to like meet up with some friends and stuff, but not so much for work, because I just feel like when I'm not at home and ready, if an opportunity comes along, I don't want to miss out on that, you know? A lot of projects that come in, they're very last minute and they're like, we need something done in 2 weeks. If I'm on the beach in Barbados or something, like I'm screwed, you know. I got it.
Yeah, you're like, I need my home studio right now. We need to cook.
Yeah, I would say that, like, things are getting like a little bit easier now in that sense, and I do think I'm going to consider doing a little more traveling. Yeah,
nice.
But no, for years, like I didn't, like, my one thing was like visiting family in the US. I live in Canada, for those who don't know, but like I would go to the US once a year just to visit family, and like that was it.
Yeah.
So if you're not investing into travel, which is it's cool to hear, because a lot of freelancers think, oh man, I'm going to go to Bali when I get a break. No, you're not that. But what are some of the things you have invested in when it comes to just being an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
It's like a Graham Stephan podcast.
Hey, seriously though.
Yeah, I invest in like the regular things, obviously like stocks and whatnot, but
yeah,
I have my house, which is like, I guess some people would look at that as an investment.
That's awesome.
When you own a property, but
late 20s and you own a house.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not easy to do. That was a big accomplishment for sure. And not just my own accomplishment. My fiance, Sarah, and I, we own the house together. So
that's awesome.
Congrats.
Yeah,
thank you.
Congrats.
And then other than that, like, my biggest investments were always in stuff that would help my videos. And there was a time where I was like, should I upgrade my camera? Should I upgrade my lighting? Do I need a better microphone? And I used to be really careful about where I would spend money. And then you realize, like, this is your business. Like, you got tax write-offs and stuff when you buy equipment, which is nice, but you shouldn't hold back on wanting to make better stuff. I saw a slow motion camera online, the Kronos, 1,000 frames per second camera.
Yeah, you made awesome videos with that. Yeah.
Thanks. And I saw the price tag, and I think it was like 17 grand Canadian. And I was like, that's the most expensive thing I've ever bought. But I was like, you know what? No one on YouTube right now in the space I'm in. I'm sure there was like slow-mo people who had them, who were like messing around, but like, no, there's no commercial or videographer, freelancer using that camera.
Wow.
I was like,
there was a market opportunity.
Yeah, there was an opportunity to create new value and show people something that maybe they hadn't considered or heard of. And also just to offer to clients. It's like, oh, you want me to do a video for a vodka soda? Well, now we can do it in 1,000 frames per second. It's going to look even cooler.
That's dope.
And the 17 grand for that camera sounds outrageous at the time when you're like, I can't believe I'm going to spend that much money on a camera. And then you do a few videos with it, and the clients like it, and it gets you more jobs, and you realize pays itself off quicker than you think.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd say like investing in gear was always my philosophy, was to not hold back, especially on things like lighting and audio. Like, if you took this light out right now and took these microphones away, this podcast would not have the same effect.
Oh, we'd be pretty scrappy.
We get scrappy sometimes. We just ripped an episode on a park bench before this.
That was dope.
With some labs.
Yeah, you labbed
is
up
way
still though. Like that's,
This is way better. Yeah, no, that's awesome. The reason why I asked that question and my angle with that was, I think in the early stages, if you're not careful with like when the money does come in, and if you're not smart with it and you don't actually try to get better at what you do, you're going to find yourself having a nicer life, but trying to keep up with that life, but your skills aren't growing. So then you're going to find yourself in this like almost dead end where you're like, okay, why am I not making more money? But I've bought all this stuff, but this stuff wasn't a reinvestment into your business. So then you hit this wall.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear from yourself. those months that were good. And yeah, buying something like a $17,000 camera is crazy in the moment, but
pays itself
you reinvest
off.
it. It's a reinvestment.
I think it's even interesting to talk about what I don't spend money on. Like when it comes to clothing, like everything is from the thrift store. Like I don't buy expensive clothes ever. Like my fiance goes to the thrift store and picks out my shirts.
That's awesome.
That's it. Like
that's sweet.
I can't be going to, I don't even know what stores are out there these days, but I can't go to OVO and spend $150 on a shirt for what?
Like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to hear how, like, what people prioritize. Because, like, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that talk about, like, landing projects. But it's like, once you land the project and you get that invoice paid, obviously everyone has their own way of dealing with money. I'm all about talking about, like, what's your relationship with money as a business owner. But I think it's so cool to kind of hear, like, yeah, bro, I got this shirt that I've been wearing for, like, 5 years and I'm cool about it. It's like in 5 YouTube videos.
Yeah. No, I'm not actually like a Sony grip. This is literally from Value Village. So yeah.
I mean, it's cool that they had that shirt there though.
Yeah. Do you have Value Village in the States?
We do. We do have Value Village.
It's like Goodwill, same kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you have any questions to round it out? I have one more and then maybe you can, I don't know if you have any more.
I think right now there's a lot of attention on YouTube. Not to say there wasn't years ago, but the fact that that's been a platform that's really like driven, I'm just going to say like your engagement across all channels. What advice would you have for someone that's like, maybe they've been creating content for brands, they've been documenting, they've been posting reels, and they're like embarking on the YouTube journey? Because I feel like YouTube is way different than Instagram. Do you have like any practical tips that you would give to people that are trying to hop into that world?
Yeah, I think it's so hard not to get into cliches with this stuff. But I think if you want to actually have a sustainable run on YouTube, you have to be authentic and you have to make content you enjoy making. That's always what I've said. I'm going to keep saying it. Like, if you don't like the videos you're making, if you're not into it, if you dread opening up the laptop and editing a YouTube video, you're making the wrong kind of videos. You shouldn't hate it. It has to come from a place of like passion. And for me, it did for years. I think it turned into a career and I would like a little bit more time to myself to not be editing and whatnot. But for so long, I just loved it. And I think that's the most important part is if you like it, you're going to stick with it. And everyone says consistency is key. Well, how do you become consistent? If you like it, consistency is easy. So make sure you like what you're making. And if you don't, make something else.
Yeah, that's facts though. I feel like it's cliche and it's a statement that gets brought up a lot, even around like people that are trying to figure out if entrepreneurship's for them. It's like, yo, if you're not a risk taker, don't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Go get a 9-to-5, learn a lot. I don't know.
And like, that's fine too. Yeah.
That's good.
My final question to round it out is essentially kind of your thoughts on failing. And then when you do hit, like, let's say burnout, or you're just like, bro, I'm going through a season of like, I don't even want to pick up a camera. Like, I'm just not motivated. Do you have like a typical reset process? Like, how do you pick yourself up out of a low point, I guess, whether that's creatively, mentally, or just in general, like your process or routine?
Can't say hockey.
I was about to say hockey and golf. No, I don't know if there's like a go-to reset button. I think it depends on the mental state, what's going on, what is the failure? Like, are we talking the video didn't do as well as I had hoped, or are we talking I haven't been able to upload for a month because I have no ideas, or I'm feeling burnt out, or uninspired? But I'd say it comes back to a little bit what I touched on earlier, which the number one thing is surrounding yourself with other people who are kind of doing it also. Whenever I'm feeling like I've failed in not uploading as much as I want, which by the way, like there's this pressure to like keep uploading on social media that isn't healthy. The worst case scenario is you just don't upload for a bit.
Yeah.
Then you come back.
Wow.
Sure, it might be a little slow when you come back, but it'll pick up again. Like if you make good work and people liked your stuff before, they're gonna still like it.
It's okay to take breaks.
It's okay to take breaks. I think that it's so like messed up that we're conditioned now to like
speed,
to always be go, go, go and uploading constantly. You like, that's what I'd say is like, take a break, like take a breather, step back, do something you like, play hockey.
Yeah.
Play golf.
All right, so hold up, take a break and then take another break.
Yeah.
And play some golf.
Yeah.
Or hockey.
Do something that like brings you joy and gets you out of that headspace. If you're just constantly staring at a blank page, trying to come up with an idea, dwelling on a flopped video or a lost client, you're not helping yourself get anywhere. Just step away from it for a bit, do something you like, talk to some friends, meet some people, collaborate on something, do a passion project, you know, do something fun.
That's so good. I just want to say, it reminds me of music artists like Adele. Shout out to Adele. She's not a friend of mine, but shout out to her.
Shout out.
She said shout out.
But like, she fell off the map and no one heard, like, she literally didn't post the thing for years. And then she came out with a banger album. Artists do this all the time. And I feel like it's so cool that they're human. It's like, they're not coming out with back to back to back to back albums because they need time to rest. And also maybe they don't feel creative. But I think what you said is so good. And I think there's people listening that need to hear it, because it seems like a race where you can't stop sometimes. Like you just got to keep going, keep going, keep going. But I think health over burnout is kind of the main theme here. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, especially going into the new year.
Yeah, burnout it's going to happen no matter what. I don't really know anybody who hasn't felt burnt out. Have you guys felt burnt out?
Heck yeah, bro.
I'm currently burnt out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, yo, guys, if you're watching the YouTube, look at Ed. He's burnt out. No, Ed's healthy.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Burnout's going to happen.
But it's totally normal.
Yep.
And it's just like nobody, unless you're David Goggins, you're not going to just
stay hard.
Yeah.
No, you got to take time for yourself.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what does the future look like for Daniel Schiffer? Like, where are we going from here? Like, I guess your idea of success is probably look different from when you were like trying to start a YouTube channel.
Sure.
Your success was different from what it is now. So what does a successful and comfortable life look like for you now?
Yeah, I never wanted to like close any doors or disregard certain opportunities. Like I'm open to so many things. Like I haven't ruled out the idea of starting a legit production company, whether that's next year or in 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. I feel like I have some time to figure that out. But I'd say in the short term, I'm going to focus a little bit more on short form content. It's just easier. It's less of a lift than making 8 to 15 minute YouTube videos. So I can make more content, and I feel like I would make more people happy to see a bit more consistency.
That's cool.
By doing short form. So that's kind of the short term plan is to make more short form content.
Oh, that's good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Where can people find you, man? Where if you're not familiar with who Daniel Schiffer is, get on the program. But if you're not, like, where can people find you? Where would you like to send people?
Yeah, just type in the name.
Oh, okay.
I like that.
Wherever.
How about this? Just go to Google and search my name.
What I wonder what your Wikipedia is like the description of Google and how everyone has.
I don't have a wiki. As far as I know, I don't think so.
Google AI will generate something for you.
Someone has to make one. It's not going to be me though. No, Instagram @Daniel.Schiffer. That's where I'm most active nowadays.
Cool.
So that would be it.
Awesome. Well, bro, we appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on the mic. I know your time is valuable. And I had a good time hearing a little bit about what's going on right now.
I had a great time.
What your journey's been like.
Appreciate it, guys. That was fun.
Catch you on the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.